Thanks for joining us, guys. Today, we are here to discuss something extremely important, probably more important than anything we've discussed so far. This is a sales masterclass, but sales without retention is a recipe for disaster. We have with us Ben Gandy, principal at Envisor Consulting. Ben worked at a company where they surveyed recently onboarded clients for a long period. Ben, was it like 14 years?
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. And they found a very simple insight, very powerful. If the onboarding is not a success from a client POV, the average lifespan of customers dropped from 10 years to 3 years. Soak that in for a second. 10 years to 3 years. That's what makes this topic absolutely freaking critical for a landscaping company's success. We are all building a maintenance business here, and we need the recurrent contracts to retain over a long period of time because we do a lot of upfront investment in acquiring these customers. So we need these clients to stick around. Now, if you are targeting 90% retention rates, as any good business should in this industry, you need the clients to stick around for 10 years. And if we refer back to that survey, for 10 years, you need to have an amazing client onboarding experience, right? So that's why we are here. And Ben worked at Valley Crest for a decade as the productivity leader, where he implemented strategies to improve operational efficiency that led to increased customer retention, quality, and safety. Now, Ben works with numerous LM150 customers right now and is a highly respected thought leader in our industry. And there could be no one better than him to teach us about it. Ben, thank you so much for joining us today, man. Can you give us more context on this survey to kick us off?
Absolutely. So, when you have 14 years of data, that's statistically significant. And the question for new clients really was a rating on a scale of 1 to 5. That's, with a 5 being you really love us and a 1 being you really hate us. And what the data said was that anything less than a 4, anything that was a 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, or 1, it was neutral, or I don't really like you, or I kind of hate you. Anything less than that, the life of that client was truncated by, like 67%. So, to 𝐲𝐸𝐷's point, if you're trying to retain 90% of your clients year over year, then mathematically that means that the average life of your customer is 9 or 10 years. You can't let customers go away in 3 years or less. So you only get one chance to make a good first impression. And I know that's a little bit trite, right? That's been said before, right? But it's true. It's an obvious truth. We only get one chance to make a good first impression. What that data set said was that if you fail to make a good first impression, you don't recover. A lot of those clients just go away in a relatively short term if we don't do a good job up front making a good first impression. So that's what this whole webinar is about, is ensuring that we make a good first impression, that we start strong.
Very cool. Housekeeping items, guys. We have a Q&A button in the toolbar here, the Zoom toolbar. Use that to ask questions. We like to take up questions in the middle of the discussion. We don't want to postpone that to the end. Second, the video recording is going to be uploaded on the SiteRecon YouTube channel. Please go and subscribe there. The recordings of the previous masterclasses have already been uploaded there, so go have a look at that. And all our future lessons will be uploaded there as well. And finally, we will have 2 very cool giveaways for you at the end of the webinar. So please stick around because it's going to be worth your while. I mean, apart from the giveaways, you're going to make millions of dollars if you just follow what Ben is going to share here.
It's also kind of complicated. There's a lot of things that are kind of going on when we get new jobs, new maintenance contracts starting off in our business. And we're really to that time of year when anything that we sold, particularly in a cooler climate, is about to start here within like today. So it's time to really talk about the new job startup process. You can go ahead. So whenever I think about a business process, I always want to try to develop business process as simply as possible, as few steps as possible, and as few handoffs from one step to the next as possible, but not too simple. It needs to be thorough. So that's what this new job startup process that we're going to talk about today really represents, is a simple, ordered system for being successful with new jobs. And here's the sequence. We have the job package, the internal job meeting, planning and scheduling, the client meeting, and a 30-day follow-up. So it's just a 5-step process. And 𝐲𝐸𝐷 and I are going to kind of walk you through these 5 steps. We're going to start with the job package. Whenever a salesperson or a business developer sells a new maintenance contract, they have an obligation to gather up all the materials that are associated with that new job startup. the contract, the scope, and sometimes there may be multiple iterations of a contract. If we were in negotiations with the client for a period of time, the final signed contract is the one they've got to get together. The estimate, we need the site maps. We need to understand the boundaries, all the pertinent information, and there's considerable that's associated with the maps. Sales meeting notes, the nuances about what the client likes and didn't like, or maybe what turned them off from the last provider or what they liked from the last provider. Contact information, not only for the property manager, but what about the engineer? What about the asset manager? What about anybody else that needs to be involved? If it's an HOA, then obviously there's considerably more complexity in terms of that. Board members, committee members, access information, if there's any restrictions on access, gate codes, billing information, any pending work orders, all that needs to be gathered up. And, I'm of the really strong opinion that that's the salesperson, that's the business developer's person's responsibility to get all that stuff together. If they don't get it together, then that means that the other team members that are involved are going to have to swim back upstream and find all that information out, because we're going to need it all sooner or later. And rather than having the rest of the team have to swim back upstream and find it out, it's the responsibility. It's being a good steward of your position as the salesperson to hand all that information downstream, gather it all up. And I love the fact that with SiteRecon, you can associate most of that information with a graphic, with a map, so that it's all tied together in one place, and we're not, scrambling around trying to find that all that information.
So true. I mean, so here's the takeoff, right? It's got all the layers that you would have estimated on, turf, mulch, soft edge, hard edge. It's all here. Now, you would visit the property, and you just brought up, sales meeting notes. And there's a bunch of notes you could be noting on site, like the service issues, peculiarities of the site, special requests from the customer, even enhancement ideas, right? Because you're the first eye on site. If the site has a lot of enhancement potential, then maybe you could play around with your margins a little bit. You can make that up later on. So all of that is just great intel going into like your closure, and then obviously later on as you're handing that off to someone else. I mean, there's more that we'll get into, Ben. So I'm gonna pause here because I know you're gonna talk about a lot from a production standpoint, and then I'll show more stuff.
That's right. Yeah. So there's a responsibility. The first step, the responsibility of the business developer, the salesperson, to gather all this information. It can all be associated with the maps available through SiteRecon. So step one, job package needs to be thorough, and you need to develop inside of your company what's the standards that you expect for this job package, right? Here's a great list right here, and this is going to be available to you after our meeting, but you may have other things that you want to add or subtract here, but it needs to be standardized so that we don't have to recreate the wheel with each new job.
Very cool. Is this package, Ben, is this like a bunch of papers printed out? No.
It was when I was in this business 30 years ago. It was a bunch of paper stacked up and it was all put in a vanilla paper, but not anymore. Yeah. This is a digital package at this point, as much as possible for a lot of reasons. One is it's easier to deal with. It's more durable. It's more sustainable. I don't have to hunt for it. I can access it anywhere. I don't have to carry around paper from place to place and get stuff lost. This is a digital package. Maybe we should come up with another name for it, but it represents all the intelligence that's associated with this job right at the startup.
Very cool.
Next, we need to have an internal meeting. Every time we start a new job, we need to gather up the team and talk about it. And, there's a couple of questions here, who are the attendees and what are we going to talk about? And I believe that, the account manager who's ultimately going to end up with this job needs to attend, salesperson, production manager, the branch manager. And if you're not in a branch situation, is the business unit manager. You may have other specialty people attend depending on the job, but at a minimum, whoever sold the job, whoever's responsible for the business unit and the account manager need to attend. And what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the stuff that's in the job package, right? So the job package really facilitates this meeting. It's a review of the scope of the contract, of the issues of how did we get here. At the same time, we can talk about schedules, equipment needs, people needs. One of the key critical pieces of information or discussion that I think needs to be part of this meeting is talking about how will we make a difference on that property within the first 30 days, visible difference. For example, if the entranceway turf is kind of weak and undernourished, then let's just go out and put some urea or put some iron or put something on the turf. Maybe you're going to do the whole property, maybe at least do the entranceway. with something that's quick so that it'll green up kind of overnight, and take a picture of it before and after. Because somehow I'm looking to validate the client's decision. They've made a decision to choose you. And if you can point to something physically on the property within 30 days and say, hey, looks better, then you've given some peace to the property manager, whoever signed your contract, that, yeah, it does look better. I did make the right decision. And you also give them some ammunition. So if they need to supply something to the asset manager or to the board or something like that, then they can point out, wow, these guys are making a difference. But I need to plan that. I need to not just hope that it looks better, in 30 days. I need to plan to have it look better within 30 days. So we're going to talk about all those things. We're particularly going to talk about the scope and client expectations, because the next meeting is going to be the client meeting. And sometimes there's ambiguities in the scope. Sometimes you'll find with contracts that there may be a table that represents a certain frequency, and then there may be some narrative written into the scope that may represent a different set of frequencies or something like that. Well, okay, it happens all the time. If we find it, then we can look smart in front of the client and talk about it and settle it, rather than waiting for them to find it and scratch their head over, what's going on. So we're talking about this internal meeting so that we can be well armed for the client meeting, and so that we can begin to put all of our production resources, into motion to make sure that we get started strong.
Got you. I have a couple of questions here. So how long should this meeting be?
So it depends. So, if it is a very small job that we're going to start up, and, it's $400 a month, this is a 5-minute meeting, Utkarsh, right? We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this.
Yeah.
If it's a $400,000 job, we're going to spend half a day and make sure that everything is locked and loaded. But I would have it every time. One of the keys to good, solid business systems is that you do it every time. You just do it every time. And one of the things that, I've dealt with in my operational career is, oh, it's a really small job. Do we really need to have the meeting? Yeah, we have the meeting every time, because if we don't have the meeting, we will lose the practice. We'll lose the discipline. So the meeting is somewhat dictated by the size of the contract. I'm a little facetious at 5 minutes. It's going to take 10 minutes, even if it's a small job, just to make sure that everybody's level set. There may be a strategic reason why we're taking on a small job. It may be $1 million portfolio, and they have one little, satellite somewhere that they need to have taken care of. That's fine. Let's not screw that up. Let's spend the 10 minutes it deserves and make sure we do it right. Bigger jobs, you may need to spend a couple of hours. You may need to have them on site rather than in the office, right? But this is our opportunity to make sure that all the production guns are loaded, and that we're prepared for the next step, which is the client meeting.
Got you. And as people are going into this meeting, what should be the expectation of the level of preparedness of the attendees? So I'm assuming the job package is going to be ready a few days before this meeting happens. So it's sent out, and everybody is sort of expected to have, gone through it properly at that. Okay.
Yes, that's a great point, Utkarsh. So I believe that, if you're the account manager, if you're the production manager, you should, leaf through that package and have your questions, right? And you may have the same questions every time, but you should leaf through it. And, if I'm a production manager, it's a big job. Do we need to buy another truck? Do we need to buy more mowers? Do I have permission to go do that? If I'm an account manager, tell me about the subtleties of the property manager, our new client. Tell me about the personality type. Tell me why they fired the prior contractor. Tell me, that sort of thing. Those are things to be prepared with. And by the way, before I leave this slide, one of the good questions here is, whose meeting is this? And my recommendation is going to be that this is the branch manager's meeting, or if you don't have branches, this is the business unit's meeting. The business developer doesn't necessarily have authority over the production manager and the account manager and whoever else, but the branch manager does. The branch manager has authority over all the players that need to attend. The business unit manager has authority over all of them. Plus, they've got a real vested interest in making sure that this process has integrity, that it happens every time, right? So this is the way that they can ensure that we've got good integrity around our process, is that this meeting happens and they have control over it and they call it.
Isn't it kind of weird that the business developer is supposed to hand off this account, but he's not the one sending out the calendar invite? Like, I'm assuming whoever owns the meeting is sending out the calendar invite.
Well, my fear with a business developer sending out the calendar invite is if they don't actually have authority over the account manager, the production manager, or anybody else that needs
I
to
see.
be, might they, yeah, I don't know if I got time. Well, you got time if it's your boss, right? So that's why
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that it's their meeting.
All right, sweet. Let's keep going.
Client meeting. Obviously, we've got to go meet the client. We got to go meet the new client. And I want to have the internal meeting that we just talked about first so that when we go meet the new client, we're prepared. We look smart because we've read the contract and we've talked about it and we recognized if there's any contradictions in the language and we have good questions and we're not making the client start over with the whole team here after they've spent time telling the business developer all of their needs. So the account manager needs to attend, production, obviously, the salesperson needs to attend. And we're going to introduce everybody, talk about the scope, maybe even sort of briefly sort of read over the scope. Hey, this is 36 mows and we are taking the carrying the irrigation, mulches out of scope, whatever that may be, of course, because I've been to these type of meetings where I've realized that the clients never read the scope. So we should all agree before we walk out the door, what's this? What are we providing? What are we not providing? We should ask politely, what are your past issues or challenges? And what I kind of don't want to ask is, why did you fire the last client or the last provider or the last landscaper? Yeah, that question can be a little bit awkward. What may be a better question is, what did you like about the prior provider? And it may say, they sent me an email every Thursday and I like that. That was great. That was sort of helped me to know what was going on. That makes the second question easier to ask. What did you dislike? Right? They may say, well, they made promises in their email every Thursday that they never actually, followed up on. So eventually I gave up on it. Okay, but you need to know that.
Yeah.
What was it that alienated them from the last relationship? But I want to figure out a polite way to ask that. I want to identify opportunities going forward. And this is a little bit tricky. I don't necessarily want to turn this meeting into a sales meeting where I'm trying to sell them on, $100,000 worth of enhancement work. Maybe if they really are asking for that, okay, but they might just want to get to know us first before they want to turn us loose with a whole lot more work. So, we can ask, is there anything that you're looking for? And depending on the temperature of that response, then okay, we're gonna follow up accordingly. But I'm trying to just at this point form relationships and establish credibility. This is very much a relationship business. So we're forming relationships at this point. And I'm trying to take the point of contact away from the business developer and move it to the account manager at this point. So I'm trying to make a big kind of a deal of that. In fact, I really believe that the business developer needs to probably set this meeting because theoretically at this point, the client doesn't know the account manager. They know the business developer, but at the same time, I really want the account manager to run the meeting. I want them to own the meeting. This is a handoff meeting where the relationship is being passed from business developer to the account manager. So the account manager really needs to, step forward, maybe even physically step forward to take control of this meeting, so that the business developer can go, hunt and kill somewhere else. Now, you're not, as a business developer, you're not discarding the relationship. You would like referrals and you'd like to make friends and you'd like to stay in touch. But for day to day, you're trying to make it clear, this is the account manager is taking over from here. We certainly want to inquire about, client expectations and sort of their signature. So what are the things when you ask them about what does quality mean to you? What do they say? Because I think that as landscapers, 𝐲𝐸𝐷, so many times we think that it's all about the color of the grass or the health of the flowers or the technical skill with our pruning. When I've asked those questions before and gotten responses like, it's really important to me that you bill me on the 25th of the month. But it is, to them, that's what matters. So if that's what, or, look, my boss parks right there outside of this window. So anything from that parking lot to the front door, don't let a piece of trash be there. Please, for goodness sakes, that's embarrassing to me when something's amiss in that walk path. So how do they define quality? And let's ask them for how they want to be communicated with. Do you want me to communicate to you, in person, by text, by phone, by email? At what cadence? Is it once a month, once a week, once a quarter? How did they want to be communicated with? Pictures, with the resources that we've got at SiteRecon, we can provide them really cool pictures that have, geolocate tied to a map. We should probably show them that and explain to them that we got those capabilities, and see if that's the best way to communicate with them. And then, timelines for follow-up. The next time we speak will be when, a month from now, a week from now. And what are we going to talk about? So I think if you have this meeting and you're prepared for it and you have a set agenda that you're going to talk about, my experience is it blows clients away. They don't experience this normally. Normally, a crew shows up and then an account manager wanders by a week later and introduces themselves. I'm your new account manager. And they're like, well, okay, let me start all over and explain my whole history to you. And when we go in there prepared and make it easy for them, and we're guiding them instead of them having to guide us, I think it makes a huge first impression.
Very cool. I have a question here. Like, what sort of, do you prepare like a presentation for this meeting, or do you take props with you? Like, what are the things you take with you to the meeting?
Yeah. So bring the contract with you, with the scope with you, so that if we need to review that's easy. Bring your laptop with you and go through and show the client the capabilities we've got with SiteRecon, so that we can communicate and graphically to make that easy. I would not make it super formal, where we're pulling out a projection screen and all that, because I don't want to set the expectation that every time we get together it's that formal.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't want to have that burden on my account manager. I want to just to be able to pop open a laptop and talk about whatever we need to talk about. But yeah, absolutely, of course, it's a great point that we need to have all that kind of pulled up, and the Wi-Fi connection already done, all that set, so that we're not fumbling with the client, so that it's easy to talk about.
Got you. And do you also recommend bringing up, oh, let's go around and walk the property, or like you would like to sort of set that in the agenda when you are setting that meeting?
You would absolutely like to walk the property. Not every client's going to, so it depends. Yeah. But I would much rather walk the property for a number of reasons, so that we're all looking at the same thing and we're all agreeing, hey, this needs to be addressed and this looks great. And also because there's something genuine and disarming about walking around together that helps, I think, build the relationship. And we provide landscape services anyway, so let's go into the landscape and look at it. And I think that 4 out of 5 times they'll walk with you. And however, every now and then you run into clients that they want to sit in their office and they're not crazy about getting around and walk. And if they're not, I'm going to make them, don't force that if it becomes awkward. But absolutely, that needs to be part of the meeting, as long as they're willing.
Got you. One last question. Duration of the meeting?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Duration of the meeting, 1 hour. 1 hour is ideal.
Yeah. An hour is plenty. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So planning, this is another step in this process. So it's the first step was the job package, second step, internal meeting, third step, the client meeting. And now, based on all these meetings, we got to just make sure that all our, production planning is in order. I really strongly recommend completing a quality assessment right away. You're really assessing the quality of the prior provider, but that's fine. We need some sort of a benchmark. We need to develop our attack plan for the property and communicate it to the client. A lot of times when we're taking over properties, there's some sort of cleanup involved. There's some deficiencies in the landscape. That's just the typical state of taking over a property. Maybe we're getting paid extra for it, maybe we're not. But in any case, we got to do it, and we got to set some timelines around it. We've got to strongly suggest immediately doing some photo documentation. So this is the before pictures. Take 20 pictures of before, because a month from now, 2 months from now, or forever from now, I want to take the after pictures, but I only have a very limited time window to take the before pictures. I've got forever to take the after pictures, but the before pictures I need to do immediately. We've got with SiteRecon, we have such awesome labeling capability. I want to label what are the focal areas, where's the truck mark, what about the irrigation, all those things. Let's get that done. The irrigation shutoffs, the master valves, where all the valves are, where the controller boxes are, the productivity plan for the crew. I certainly want to document and begin to put together my enhancement ideas.
All right, I wanna.
Yeah. Sure,
go ahead, Ben. Yeah, I just wanted to open this on the side as you were talking through this stuff. Mm-hmm. So irrigation items, guys. So shut off valve, master valve, controllers, zone valve. You got You can drop all of these here, and then, basically everybody has access to these, even on their mobile app. So when your subcontractors are going out there, they would know exactly where these valves are. They can play around with it, monitor it.
That type of
Go on, Ben.
information, that type of information makes you money. It makes you look so much smarter. Irrigation breaks all the time. It's just the nature of it. And when you dispatch a crew out there and they don't have to spend an hour trying to figure out which zone, is leaking or whatever, they just open the map and walk over to it. You look smart. You're a hero. You make money doing that. That's just I love that capability. Tree pruning plans. This is a Florida property. This is actually in Jacksonville, this Fullerton Street. In Florida landscapes, it's mostly live oaks and palm trees. And live oaks generally get hurricane pruned every, 3 or 4 years, 5 years. And palm trees usually get pruned at least once a year. So having, the mapping capability that you can pass off to your sub or to your in-house crew, it's awesome. Your productivity plans, understanding, for this particular contractor, they prune by kind of area that they'll prune a 4-week rotation. So they'll divide every property into 4 sections, and each week they'll prune a section. You prune a lot in Florida. Spray sections, they spray at least a third of the property every week. So they go ahead and map all those things out so it's clear. And they communicate all that to the customer. I would share all this information to the customer. It makes you look smart and takes a lot of the question marks away from the customer's mind.
Yeah, so these are sections that, I just drew.
Sure.
I'm not the smartest one when I'm doing those drawings, but it gets the message across, right?
That's right. Yeah. No, a landscaper that knows what it's doing, of course, they're going to do it completely differently, but that's okay.
You mentioned path of motion as well. So that's also like a great productivity tool here. Like where you park your truck, how you would move around the site. Now, these are very, very detailed paths that we've drawn, depending on your own, let's just say, capacity, time, how much your crews can consume, the level of detail, how tightly you want to control them, and so on. So, I mean, you can get into like very, very fine details here, or you could like actually zoom out and just like cover broad sections and just like keep drawing a path. So you have a tool right here to do, your path of motion mapping, and you can go around like planning out these sections for your different members of the crew. Like your crew leader will have a different path. Different techs will have, servicing different parts of the property, follow a different path. And that all sort of comes together here.
Yeah. Again, this is Florida. In Florida, you have to edge at least in every other week frequency because the nature of the turf grass is there. So I usually start with the edge path because it's a right-hand oriented tool, and so is the blower, and so is the mower. So once you scribe that particular path, then all your other equipment generally follows it. But I think it's a huge productivity gain when you can, make it clear how your team is supposed to move around the property. Then you're minimizing the dead walking and the hunting. If you and I are both mowing, we don't need to hunt around and figure out what did you mow and then what did I mow and then did you get that and then I get that. No, let's just make a path of motion for you and a path of motion for me, and I do my pieces and you do your pieces, and now it's just a whole lot easier to manage. It's a whole lot easier to produce if I'm a crew leader.
And so once you're back from the client meeting, these are the items you should be ideally working on.
Yeah, and you may have started on those in your internal meeting, but I'm not going to call it finished until I've had my client meeting because I want that input in terms of their priorities or their idiosyncrasies to make sure they're literally baked into my plan.
Got you. You mentioned something cool about site audits. I also want to make that point. So, you have your notes from your sales meetings, previous site walks assembled here. You go to that client meeting. At that point, you could actually be just on your mobile app, have a meeting template, and you take a note of like who all attended that meeting, what was discussed, and then you basically go through, okay, what are the items discussed, priorities, like you were saying, Ben, like make sure leaf cleanup is good, trash is like taken care of. And this is a specific template documenting a specific set of action items that get passed on. Now you can have your own templates that sort of tightens your process at that point. The questions sort of define what answers you will collect from your customer. Alternatively, you can set this up like a quality audit, like I've set here between turf quality, bed quality, and so on. And of course, you can capture pictures with all of these notes that you're making in the meeting on site. And so, that collects this repository of before pictures. And, you'll have all the time in the world to do the after pictures later on.
Yeah, which is just, that's so powerful, right? Because you could put every site audit as a different layer so that, stuff that's way in the past, you don't really have to worry about those layers. But I want to look at the last 2 or 3 layers, right? Because what's the change
Exactly.
over time? Are we improving not only, for internal purposes, but to be able to validate that in the customer's eyes? Wow, look at this difference. Not and arm your customer with the ability to share that with their boss or their asset manager or with the board or whoever, so that it just validates the choice that they made to have you as their provider.
100%. I mean, these are the little things that end up differentiating you, right? Like, because I remember this story from a customer I met it was somewhere in California, I'm forgetting, yeah, Los Angeles. And this guy, I was meeting this customer of ours. He was actually in the board of his HOA, and although he works at a landscaping company, but he sits on the board of his HOA too. So they were selecting their landscaping provider. And he was just saying, like, we missed the old landscaper that we just fired. I think there were some budget cuts. And he mentioned exactly this thing, Ben, like, oh, they used to have this communication cadence, and the way they used to like send over stuff, it was very intuitive to understand what's going on. And these new guys, like, I have no idea what's happening to my 40 acres now. And he was already complaining about it. It had been like 6 months since kickoff. And, it really plays into their mind because they have these regular board meetings. And this comes up, like the landscape is the most obvious thing that gets seen.
That's just such a great point. Of course, I've surveyed numerous property managers, and some of the points that, in terms of what they're looking for, that come up over and over again are trust, expert advice, proactive communication, and effective communication. And the provider, in the case that you were just talking about, may have been doing an excellent job, but he didn't communicate, right? He wasn't proactive in his communication. He was making the customer chase him around and ask him, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on. These tools and these communication tools, it put you in a position to earn trust, to communicate effectively, to communicate proactively, right? And to demonstrate your expertise. And now, as a customer, I can be at ease. Guys, these guys are more organized than I am. And you probably are, which is awesome, right? Now it's such a relationship business, and your relationship just gets so much easier if they trust you, right? And this can certainly validate their trust.
Michael, you have a question. Are these irrigation zones and key points added directly to SiteRecon by our irrigation team as an overlay? Yes, exactly. So, you get your takeoffs done, and then these maps are sitting here. Then you go in, you add a view, you say, I want to add an irrigation view. You can copy these, turf maps and mulch maps and tree maps from that takeoff view that, we sent over to you. You copy these layers into this irrigation view, and then you can do like a few different things. Like first of all, you can turn off your base map so that you have a clear view into, okay, all the areas that you want to water, and then you can, add layers. You can create these layers. You can have your own names, like main shutoff is a name that we use. You can have your own, use your icon, and then just like drop off these icons wherever they are on the map. You can do it yourself. You can hand it off to someone who has access to this property to do it for you. And then, you end up with this map. Of course, now you can go ahead. If you want this data to be accessible to others, you can simply invite them into the platform as viewers without any subscription, so they can look at that on their mobile device and so on. Or if they are not too tech friendly, then you can go ahead and take a snapshot of this. There's a cool feature we launched recently called the Snapshot Studio. And essentially now over here, you can sort of choose to, zoom into a section or like take a printout of the whole, and then obviously manage the size that you want to take snapshot of. So you can take like a small A4 size printout, or you can like take very large architectural size drawing printouts, depending on like what you want to do with that exports you are taking here. So there's a lot of ways in which you can consume this data that you put into the system. That answers your question, Michael. All right. One more question here. Can irrigation valves have the individual valve number labeled? Can irrigation valves have, you want to have like a
There's
label number?
Yeah, I think there's
Label
13
number of
valves
your
on. Yeah, I think there's 13 valves on this job.
100%. We do have that here on the side. So all these valves are uniquely labeled. Obviously, you will be able to see these labels when you open this on your mobile device as well. Now, if you want these labels to be appearing on the map, I think we are a couple of weeks away from shipping that update, and then all the IDs that you have here will be sort of visible on the map as well. So any snapshot that you take of this map will naturally have the valves on them, and so very easy to communicate. So we are working on that. Should be out very soon.
Awesome.
Thanks for the questions. Back to the presentation. I'll go full screen.
That's strong. So again, it's job package, it's internal meeting, it's client meeting, and then there's this productivity planning, right?
All right, we just went through these.
Yeah, it's putting together all these graphics, right, on the SiteRecon, and then and putting together your schedule. So this is just sort of a Gantt of an annualized operational calendar. There's 52 columns here, 52 weeks in a year. And when do you mow, when do you edge, when do you prune, when do you mulch, when do you turn on irrigation, when do you spray what application, when do you put flowers in? It varies, of course, per region that you're in, what part of the country you're in. But I would just make a note as part of your protocol with new jobs to check off all those and make sure that if you're using Aspire, using Boss, or using Service Autopilot, whatever you're using, that all those activities are populated in the computer system that you're using, right? So I've unfortunately have started new jobs before where I've gone out, 6 months later and looked at it and thought, gosh, the turf just looks awful out here, and realized, well, it's because I never told the guy he has to see, it exists, he didn't know. So anyways, most of the systems, modern systems that we have right now are somewhat foolproof in that they're work order driven, and the opportunity that happened diminishes. But I don't know, you can be dumb, and sometimes I can be really dumb. So just make sure, have yourself a checklist.
Do you give client access to this as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Schedule at this level of detail?
Yeah. With the caveat, if we have a rain event or something like that, there's going to be, some things that may get adjusted in the schedule. But in general, this is the way we want to execute our work. And then, finally, we need to follow up. And I really suggest that in your original internal meeting, while everybody's sitting there, go ahead and everybody open up their calendar and set the 30-day follow-up. When are we going to get back together and make sure that we executed on everything that we talked about, right? It's the same group of attendees, and talk about what were the original expectations that we agreed on. Do we have the quality audit complete? Do we have the second one complete? How are we doing on the man hours? And most of the time when we start a new job, we may invest some additional man hours that are over and above the estimate just to make sure that the job's off to a good start, and because we may have some cleanup work to do, and that's okay. But we should agree on what's the limit of those hours. Did you agree to throw 20 hours at it, 100 hours at it? What let's figure out how we're going to taper into the estimated hours. Where are we at the property attack plan, the 30, 60, 90? This would be the 30-day mark. Are we executing as we agreed upon? What about the improvements? Let's develop our enhancement plan, improvement plans, and assess client satisfaction. And by that, I literally mean pick up the phone and somebody call them and talk to them. And I'm going to suggest that the branch manager or the business unit manager do this, because if it's the account manager, if they call, it's sort of the equivalent of them calling and saying, "Do you like me?" Well, of course they're going to say, "Yes, we're fine with you." I'm wanting a third party to kind of, "Hey, I'm just checking in. Is 𝐲𝐸𝐴𝐿, are we good? Or enjoyed meeting you. Just want to make sure that all the things that my team committed to you that we're executing on. Is there anything that is hanging open in your file that we haven't completed, or that you're still waiting on?" Hopefully that is a glowing conversation, and the leader can pass it on to the team at that point. "Hey, good job, guys." But if there is anything, you can't let it go very long. It's already gone 30 days. That's we're 4 weeks in at this point. Anything that is sort of hanging open in the client's mind at this point, let's identify it and tie it off pretty quick. Anything that's hanging on in our mind in terms of, did we get the before pictures? Do we have the irrigation, mapped yet? Did we execute on whatever we agreed upon would make a visible difference within 30 days? Pulling some weeds, pruning some shrubs, doing some fertilization, something like that. We only have one chance to make a first impression. So let's make sure that we do so, that it is a positive first impression. We're planning, we're not just hoping this will happen. We're going to make that happen. So this piece, again, put it in your calendars and make sure that we follow up.
You said branch manager does this? Like, So what does the business developer do at this point?
They listen. So the business developer may be the appropriate party to call in, or it could be the branch manager. If the business developer has a really good, strong relationship with the new client, the client may be reluctant to say bad things. So I'm trying to find a party that the client would be open to say if they have any complaints, that they don't feel like they're going to offend anybody if they go ahead and say that. So business developer and branch manager might want to just get together. Hey, who should make this call? Should that be you or should that be me? If it's just particularly a close relationship with the business developer, then let the branch manager do it, so that the client might be a little bit more open if they have any kind of complaints to go ahead and voice those. We're trying to solicit complaints. We're not trying to close that. If there are any, there may not be any. Hope that there's not, right? Hopefully we've done a great job.
Yeah.
But I want to give every opportunity, if there is anything sort of hanging open in the client's mind they're not quite happy with, that they feel comfortable sharing that. And if there is a close relationship, they may feel somewhat uncomfortable sharing that. So,
Gotcha.
but collaborate. If the branch manager says it's going to be hugely awkward for him to do it, then let the business developer do it. But somebody needs to do it, right? We need to agree internally that we've executed as we said we would, or if we haven't, what are our plans to make sure that we do so quickly? And then we need to make sure that from the client's perspective that we've executed as we said. So this is as simple a process as I know how to make. That it's a 5-step process: job package, responsibility of the business developer or the salesperson, internal meeting, leadership calls this meeting, and we make sure that this is where we get our production planning started and that we prepare ourselves for the client meeting. We get our schedules, our planning together. We go meet the client and have a good, solid meeting that we're well prepared for, and we have good questions when we're there. We're not making the client start over with his life story in the beginning. We're picking up where the business developer left off, and we do the 30-day follow-up. We make sure that we're executing. Things to keep in mind when you're doing this. This is a change management protocol. You've heard the term probably in business change management before. What does change management mean? Well, this is what it means, that we are managing change. Now, a new job is change in your business. It's good change. We want that change, as often as we can, right? But it is change. Therefore, we need to have a system, a protocol, a process for managing that change. And I want to use this same protocol, the same 5-step system, if we have any change at all in terms of our relationships. What if the property manager changes? And it happens all the time. Property managers leave and other property managers come in. So what if that happens? Will the new property manager need our job package? They probably will. Our contract is probably sitting around the office somewhere, but they don't know where it is. They don't know where to find it. So let's just send it to them. Here's our package. Here's our link to SiteRecon so that you can view, have the same views that we do. Do we need to have an internal meeting? Absolutely. We have a new client, essentially, if we have a property manager change. So let's talk about it. And then we need to have the client meeting and go out there and have the same meeting with the same agenda, with the same attendees if we have a property manager change. Now, our production planning may not change. On the other hand, the new property manager may have some idiosyncrasy. They would like something to change, and that's fine too. But it's the same protocol. I don't want to have a different protocol if I have a property manager change. I want to have the same protocol. And what about an account manager change? What if we, promote an account manager to business developer or to a branch manager or something like that? What if they win the lottery and they leave the country? I don't know, but if good for them, we'll go with them. But short of that, then we need to manage that. So will the new account manager need the job package? Yes, of course they will. Will we need to have an internal meeting? Of course we will. Will we need to have a client meeting? Of course we will. And we already have the agendas for those meetings set. We just talked about them, right? So every time that we have change, that account is at risk because it's a relationship business. So how do we minimize the risk that that they go away or that they get unhappy? Well, we have to manage the change, right? And this is how we manage the change. We're going to have the same multi-step process every time that happens. Step in to rebuild credibility and rebuild the relationship based on the fact that we got all our information together and it's all tied together and it's graphic and it's easy to access and talk about. This keeps everybody kind of on the same page. And one of the phrases that Utkarsh has shared with me is that he doesn't want to micromanage people's time. He wants to micromanage people's understanding. And I like that, right? I don't want to micromanage people's time at all. I don't want to manage people's times whatsoever, but I do want to micromanage, over-resource understanding, right? And, I'll tell you, the thing that's harder than landscaping is communication, is making sure that everybody is on the same page, that all the stakeholders, the client, the facility manager, the production manager, the irrigation guy, the floriculture guy, the account manager, the production manager, everybody's on the same page. And this process of every time that we have change, it's new property, changing property manager, changing account manager, that we have the same sort of protocol that we're going to reflect back on every single time, helps to keep all the stakeholders aligned and all communicated with, so that we all understand what we're doing. And we got great tools that we presented today to help make sure that happens, to facilitate all those conversations.
I asked this question yesterday, a couple of days ago, when we were talking about this, like how to make this a habit, man. Like this is it.
That's right. That's right. So one of the practices that I saw with a client's shop one time was they had a poster up on the wall in the meeting room, and they had all the items, all the tasks that we needed to do sitting on the poster, and all the clients kind of listed out. You might have a copy of that.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, let's take a look at it if we got it. So it's a contract start date, executed contract, completed startup packet, all the steps, site walk, maps, Gantt, pictures, irrigation inspection. And they listed any new job or any job with a change issue associated with it. They listed it down the rows, and there was literally a poster that literally hung up in the meeting room, and they would just date or initial or check contract start date. When is it? Customer site walk. They would date it or put a smiley face or something, so that, it was an objective checklist just to make sure that everything gets done. And if you got to the meeting, they have a staff meeting once a week, and there were blank boxes in the row. Well, yeah, go get that done before we meet again next week. It held everybody accountable. And without the leader of the organization sort of beating everybody over the head, the poster beat everybody over the head, all by itself, just by hanging there. It just sort of said to everybody, you got to get this stuff done. We've all agreed that this is important and it's time bound, and you gotta tick it off. And if you are associated, if you're the irrigation guy, check. You got to get these things done. It's a great practice.
So,
and it made it so easy.
Guys, this is the first takeaway we have for you, this checklist poster that you can have up in your shop. And we're going to send this out later with the communication that we send. I'm dropping the link in the chat here. And just like open it up, make a copy, make it yours. Good luck with all the new handovers that you do.
Exactly. Yeah. Hope you're open. You and I talked a little bit, Utkarsh, about having
saving,
digitalized versus paper. Oh my goodness. I lived many years in the paper universe where all of this was printed copies, and the digital world is just such an easier world to operate in. Everybody shares the same information. Every time there's an update, I don't go back and pull the old document out of the file, throw it away, and stick the new document in there. With digital documents, the update is immediately everywhere, right? When new people come into the organization, they just hook onto the link, and there they are. They don't have to go to find a file somewhere. It's just so much easier to operate this way.
But even in some ways harder too, because you would take photos on your phone, you would have your map on SiteRecon, then you would have your contracts on your email. And it's very easy to have that spread out so much that you aren't sort of able to collect and easily reference them again later on, which is why it is sort of essential to, at least from a visual standpoint, and a location standpoint, all the maps and all the photos you have them consolidated inside SiteRecon. So if you win the account, then it makes it very easy to make that job package. Very easy to do your handoffs, do your 30-day meetings, even run your quality audits here. Very, very easy. And it's actually designed to do it at scale. If you don't win the job, then 1 year later, you can come back and look at it again and you would be starting off from a great point and not, what if you lost your phone? What if you didn't upgrade your iCloud storage and now you don't have your photos with you anymore? And so a lot can go wrong. And like if you had intelligence on how the site looked 1 year ago, and you can actually go and see how it looks like right now, you could connect a lot of dots that adds to your sales process and sort of shows to the customer that you've been doing your homework and following along, and his business means a lot to you.
That's so powerful, right? It's just so powerful. And it's just that kind of resources is incredible. It's available today, it's absolutely what we should be doing to differentiate yourself. It's not even very expensive. I mean, it's amazing to me. I'm, somewhat senior in the industry at this point, and when I look at this stuff, I'm awed. I realize that, my grandchildren will be like, yeah, of course. How would you do anything else? I can't imagine. But this is powerful. This is the way you win business. This is the way you win trust. And it's easy.
100%. I mean, the hard part is making it a habit.
Yeah.
Because you might just pull out your phone, take photos, and like not follow that process of, taking the photo in the app and pinning it on the location where you took that photo and writing a note that sort of captures what you were thinking while you took that photo.
Good
That
point.
completes the story.
That's it. You got it. Make that habit, and yeah, you're way ahead.
And guys, we are at the end of this. We wanted to give you one last takeaway here. This is the QR code to scan. Aman, if you could drop the Calendly link in chat. We understand that, you come to SiteRecon with a specific purpose. Maybe it's just takeoffs. Maybe it's just like taking photos. But once we've gone through this handover discussion, I thought it's obvious now that you want to invite others into the system, so that you can share your work with them and also sort of encourage them to create more data so that everyone benefits. And so 20% off for all new users that you will invite in the system. If you are a customer, then 20% off on all new users you get into the system. If you are not a customer yet, check us out. If you become a customer this month, 20% off on the subscription, guys.
Good
I mean,
offer.
it's like, yeah, I mean, they sort of heard us for an hour, Ben. Like, I think 20% off is reasonable.
It's yeah. No, that's great. That's right. That's generous. It's good offer. Yeah.
All right, Q&A time. I'm going to open the chat first. Ryan, what is the best way to access this data from a digital format? Example, from an iPad, out in the field by AM or foreman. Yeah, the iPad would work great. If you don't have the iPad, then the mobile app just works fine. The iPad actually, it gives you a cleaner look when you are sitting in your yard and you are sort of having a bird's eye view of all the properties you have in the city. So that view comes up really, really nicely on the iPad. So, I mean, I think in the leadership roles, you could probably have the iPad, and the other roles, I think the mobile app would just work fine. Would Ben be willing to share his Excel operational Gantt chart? That's Ben, like what the Andrew, feel free to unmute yourself. Are you referring to this schedule map here, the schedule that you were looking at, or something else? This is not a Gantt chart, right, Ben? This is something else.
Well, yeah, I think I did call it a Gantt chart. And to answer Andrew's question, happy to share it with you. However, Andrew, you're going to have to modify it for your region, right? This particular calendar looks like it's representing probably Southeastern United States, maybe Southwest. It's going to be a little bit different if it's Northeast, Northwest. So Andrew doesn't have my mic on, but you're happy to share it. It's just an Excel format. It's not that complicated, just with the caveat that I won't modify it for your region. You'll need to do that on your own, but at least you can have the format. I'll provide it to Utkarsh. You can share it.
All right, will do. Thank you for joining in, Lauren. Thank you for joining in, guys. All right. Got a few more questions here. Oh, that's the booking link. Can you recommend some kind of best practice that helps organize and access the before and ongoing pictures so you can track them by same location?
Maybe layers, Utkarsh.
Yeah, layers would be a great way to do it. Because one thing we recommend is, if you're not using our audit features with templates in them, then you are just making notes across the property at different points. So let's say you go to the property in February and you look at 10 different things that were worth noting down. Then the following month, when you go, you make like a different view here. So you have a site audit February, you have a site audit March, and then you switch between the views, capture, okay, how does the property look like now compared to last month? What you could do is you could export both these reports and have them as a comparison, like this is what's going on the property.
I'll make one other note while someone's asking about photos is whenever I, gather my photo set of jobs, I don't do 100 photos because it's way too many. It just gets too clumsy. 20 at the most, 10, 15, 20 photos is plenty. And I try to, when I initially walk around a property, I try to pick points to take my photos from that are sort of easy and obvious. So maybe it's the entranceway and I stand on the manhole cover. That way, when I go back next month, I'm going to stand on the manhole cover. I'm going to stand on the manhole cover every time so that all my before and after pictures look, it's easy for the viewer to understand. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense. Just not too many and stand in the same spot every time. So pick your spots to make it easy. And then, there's a number of ways to be able to understand the before and after. They're all dated, every picture that you take. So
yeah. One more question. Ben, do you recommend going through this same process for renewals or a truncated version?
Truncated version. So yeah, for renewals, it's a great question. We need to gather the information from the job package. The internal meeting is the point of that meeting, renewal time is to just understand performance, right? Understand how we perform financially against the estimate. Did we beat that or did we fall short? Understand how do we do in terms of client relationships? Are they happy or not? How do we do in terms of enhancement sales, enhancement penetration? In these inflationary times that we're living in right now, we're probably going to have a price increase whether we hit the estimate or not. It's just sort of a matter of how much. So that's the purpose for the internal meeting, is to understand that. And then, obviously a client meeting. Before I package up my renewal contract for the client, I really suggest that initial client meeting, just go have a conversation and tell them, hey, this is what we did. This is what we didn't do last year. Here's how we've performed, based on inflation or whatever. We're probably looking at a 3.5% increase or 5% or 2% or whatever we may be for next year. And then just shut up and let them react to that, right? A lot of times they may say, of course, we were expecting that. Most people that, understand kind of, everybody buys eggs and milk just like you and I do. So they understand that inflation's happening right now. Most of the time, that's not going to be a surprise. What I'm kind of waiting for is if you have a renewal or if you have an increase of that much, or if you have an increase at all, I'll have to put it out for bid. And now I want to have, that's the comment that I'm trying to solicit. If that's the case, what could I do or say or think about that would, I'd rather not, is there anything that you're dissatisfied with? Are we forced to put out for bid? I don't want to make your life any harder. Now I'm negotiating basically, but it is the same process. Yes, you are. And it's a good catch. I'm glad you brought it up. Is I guess the only difference would be that rather than one meeting at a time, if I'm the branch manager, I'm the leader of the organization, I may talk about 20 jobs at a time in terms of setting up my renewals for the season. But yes, the same set of conversations in the same sequence.
Any other questions, guys? Ben, really appreciate you actually staying on after a few minutes after the 1 hour mark. I hope we didn't take too much of your time.
Awesome, guys. Pleasure to be here today. Pleasure to see everybody. Hope you got something out of it.
Thanks, guys. It was wonderful having you. Check out SiteRecon if you are not a user already. Add your colleagues here. Let's say it's handovers and make sure that our customers stick around for 10 years, man. That would be that's exactly why Ben's here. Take care, guys. Thank you so much.